I'm Girish Mukhi, AWS Solution Architect from IBM, and I'm going to talk about the blue-green deployment feature, which is uh, for Amazon RDS, and I will talk more about what like this feature provides and what are the few constraints with the feature. We'll talk both sides of the things. Right? So first of all, just to briefer on RDS as a service, which is relational database services. Like if you have any chance to work on this RDS, you might already know. But RDS is a managed database service, relational database services, and it offers like a lot of popular database engines. If you see like it offers MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle, and SQL Server, along with Aurora, which is like MySQL compatible and PostgreSQL compatible version, right? So like RDS, when I say it's managed services, like I've been a database architect and DBA for a long before I jump into AWS cloud technology. I know the pain which it goes for managing or administrating databases, be it backup or patching, upgrades. If you see, right, like the patching happens like at least like clients I have worked with, we have continuous patching going on, like quarterly patching. There will be one-off bug fixes. So there is always keeping DBS busy. On top of that, we need to find out application downtime and then work with business. So all those things, right? And there was a lot of operational overhead, which is like not there when you are using RDS or that as a managed service. So definitely it's very good offering, and there are a lot of features coming up in RDS, and one of those I'm going to touch upon today's presentation. So like blue-green deployment is the feature which was announced in last re:Invent in 2022. So you can see that it's very recent feature. It was like announced in November. And just before going into our like deployment, I just want to talk about one scenario wherein like I'm talking about, for example, database upgrades, right? So when database upgrades happen, we have predominantly we have two options. One is in-place upgrade, and another is using blue-green deployment. I'll come to that, right? So when it is in-place upgrade, right, that there is a requirement for a longer downtime. You need to get like downtime, which is like around like for RDS databases, right, or relational databases around 2 to 3 hours at least, right? So that much downtime it incur when it's in-place upgrade, and that's not only a problem of having a longer downtime, but also like there is a risk involved when you're doing in-place upgrade. In that case, right, the fail-safe will be a very challenging. If something goes bad and you want to go back to your previous stack or previous version, then it's a problem. Like there is a always inherent risk when you are doing in-place upgrade. So for mitigating that, and for critical applications, right, client may not be agreeing for in-place upgrade. So there is an option where you can use blue-green deployment. So we definitely have that option, and we used to do that even in on-premises world and even in cloud as well. So what that entails is, for blue-green deployment, we need to have a clone of exact production database, and like do your changes or upgrade in your greenfield. We call it greenfield, right? Like on clone database, test out everything, and then like make sure like you are continuously replicating with your primary database or your actual production. Make sure that is replicated without any issues with replication and everything well. Then we go for making our cutover, wherein you will make your green field as your new primary or new production. So all this has to happen when when we are doing in blue-green deployment phase. So there are a lot of manual. You can see like when I explain the steps, right, this is a lot of manual intervention or manual effort involved to even get to that greenfield environment and have that cutover happening. And if there are there are many technical issues when you actually have worked on this. Even other platforms, like if you see Oracle, SQL Server, they have offer like replication capabilities, but when you are doing it manually, there is always a challenge doing that. So with that mind, right, that in mind, like AWS came up with very nice feature of blue-green deployment as a service or as a feature out of the box as part of RDS, right? So as I mentioned, like this is like deployment for managed database changes, and changes could be it could be minor, major version upgrades. It could be schema changes. It could be instance scaling. You want to change your instance type. that can be done in your greenfield. Then parameter changes, you want to change any parameter on database level, you can do it on greenfield and make sure you test it well and then do switch over and other maintenance updates as well. So that is possible using this feature. And for deployments, when you do blue-green deployments, it creates staging environment, which is exact copy of the production. And blue is the current production and green is the staging environment. So this is a naming convention, and this helps when we go in the next slide. I'll show you the naming what AWS uses to build this two different environments. Blue is already you have your production, and green will be staging environment. And it's not only data what is being replicated, but along like it replicates other features what you have on your production database. What I mean by that is like it replicating complete topology of your production environment, not just database. So when you like talk about production topology, it's not only DB instance, right? The DB instance will have configuration, for example, multi-AZ, right? Like which is like production and standby combo. It could have multiple replicas, read replicas. Like for Aurora, it's up to I think up to 15 we can create, and for other engines it's about 5 replicas. So there could be like replicas as well, right? And then like even like when you are creating green, it takes care of other configuration like your backup configuration, backup schedule, right? So all this is done when you are creating a green without you being even worried about like making sure that like your production and greenfield matches exactly, right? So that is a big advantage of using the feature out of the box. Yeah, and I touched upon it when I was explaining blue-green deployment, but this is like obvious when it comes to the reason why clients will prefer blue-green deployment as a feature instead of doing it themselves, right? So that is like it is very simple to deploy, and I can show you at the end of the presentation. I want to show you like a demo. So there I'll talk about like how can we can do that. It's really simple when I'm showing it in, from management console. It is safe because like there are different guardrails built in for making sure that replication is up to date. There is no lag. So all these things are being handled from feature point itself, and then it is fast deployment. Switchover. So AWS claims that switchover is within a minute, and I can say like saw it myself when I was doing on lab environment. It was like around 15-20 seconds for switchover, but definitely like if I'm sure like when it actually happens when you start using it, right, there may be other caveats, but like yeah, documentation talks about a minute of switchover. So that is quite a good feature to have, because working on databases and having that possibility of switching over in a minute and having your new production ready with upgraded version is a big thing. Right. So it is very easy to create production ready staging environment, because as I talked about, like all configuration will be replicated. So you do not need to worry about that part. And then you can test your database changes in a safe staging environment without impact to production. That is again a key, right? So you are not at all touching your production when you are testing your features or any changes on your database. You are doing it on your greenfield or staging environment without even touching anything on your current production. Right, switch over to staging as your new prod without any changes to application, right? So when you like AWS RDS or Amazon RDS gives you an endpoint, so that is same endpoint we are using throughout the application connectivity when you are using this feature. And when switchover happens, that same endpoint will now connect to your new production. So and like there is no configuration changes required from application from connectivity standpoint, and that is a plus. And there is no data loss during switchover. Sorry. Yeah. So so these are a few constraints. I'm thinking like it is coming in 1 minute. Let me see if I can hide this. Okay. Yeah. So what are the few limitations, right? And when we are choosing the service, we also should be aware about the limitations so that we are doing like taking an informed decision. So I just put this slide just to go through it with you guys. Like, so one thing is it's not supporting Amazon RDS proxy, right? So RDS proxy is something else for scaling application connectivity, but currently blue-green deployment does not support that. It does not support cross-region read replicas. Read replica within region in multiple availability zones is supported, but not cross-region. Aurora serverless V1 DB clusters are not supported, and DB clusters which are part of Aurora global database, that is not supported at the moment, and AWS Cloud Formation. So this is a big thing. I think like AWS Cloud Formation should come sooner, because that becomes almost mandatory who are using this as a infrastructure as a code. So, but still, I don't see that available at the moment. And mind you, like this is not option for like encrypting or decrypting your unencrypting your database. Like it does not support that. We still need to go back to our old way of doing it, EBS snapshot, and then restore it in encrypted if it is encrypted already, right? So it's not for that. And blue-green environment resources must be in the same AWS account. So again, cross-account option is not there at the moment. During switchover, the blue DB cluster can't be the target of external replication. It could be a source, but it cannot be a target for external replication. And this is supported only for MySQL compatible RDS. RDS for MySQL, Aurora MySQL, and for MariaDB. It's not supported for PostgreSQL and other engines at the moment, but I'm hoping like very soon this should be available. Okay, so this was just a bit of a theory on what is blue-green deployment, how we can make use of it, what are the few things we should keep in mind while choosing this as an option. And there are like, I didn't input that, but I just want to talk on that. I just regarding permissions, right? So there are very fine-grained permissions when you are using this feature. Even you can control account with just a permission to create deployment. I don't know whether we have reason to do that, but you can have that fine-grained permissions given, where user can only do say create of the blue-green deployment, or it can do only switch over. So that is well documented in the AWS documentation, where it gives guidance on what are the permissions, fine-grained permissions you need for each of these accounts. So that is one thing to be aware of. Okay, so that was the theory behind this feature, but I just want to show you how this feature in pictorial diagram, right? So that it makes easy to understand, right? So like I'll divide this in 3 phases, right? One is review, where you are reviewing your current production topology. Then it will be like creation of blue-green deployment, and then it will be actual switchover and making sure your application connects to the green environment. When it comes to review, I'm just showing one of the use case or one of the environment where it has a production database in one of the availability zone, which is called MyDB1, right? And then you have standby replica, which is like multi-AZ. You again have MyDB2, which is a read replica in another region, another AZ, which is like catering to your read access or read requirement, and primary is having a read-write access, right? And as we know, like multi-AZ is like something which is having a synchronous replication, but you cannot connect or you cannot have your application connecting to standby replica. There is a new feature came up recently having a read standby replica, but this is not that. So here you cannot connect your application to a standby replica, but it is useful when actual failover scenarios, when something bad goes in your actual production environment, right? And the read replica is like using asynchronous replication, right? So this is your current topology, and it could be different, like it could be multiple replicas than just one, right? So and even we can have that topology, and still this feature is useful, provided we are in the same region, which we saw limitation, it cannot be across region, right? So this is the topology, and this on the bottom side, right, I'm showing actual demo which I'm going to cover. So this is like database 1, which is in USist 1C, and data replica DB replica 1, which is in USist 1D, right? So this is primary and replica, and this is multi-AZ setup. So when we talk about creating it, what happens is when you are creating blue-green deployment, it creates few more resources for you, and those resources will be exact copy of what you have it in your blue-green environment, right? If you see it here, like when we create blue-green deployment, we are giving one identifier, which is blue-green demo in this case, and it creates one primary database and it like put a name like a database one hyphen green and some alphanumeric character there, right? So green will be there in the name, and same for DB replica. And if you have multiple replicas, same naming convention will be followed, right? And like if we have seen this in last slide, this was our topology. And when you create a blue-green deployment, then it creates this additional resources for us. So it will be MyDB green and some alphanumeric characters, and then it will create multi-AZ standby replica, and it also will have RDS read replica, what was already there in the earlier environment. So this will be, and if you see, it will be in different AZs, but like it makes sure that it is in two different AZs. Like it will not be like primary and replica sitting in the same AZ, right? So this is a creation, and then when actual switchover happens, like there are the guardrails in place, right? So for making sure that there is no replication lag when you are actually ready for switchover, those are the guardrails in place. And one good thing is like you can even specify time, like in the sense like that is configurable when you are doing switchover, saying that like if switchover does not happen within say 5 minutes, like it's from 30 seconds to I think it is like maybe 30 minutes or something. I don't know the upper bound for that, but it is 30-second minimum. So like you can specify that much time for you can consider this as a RTO, right? Within 30 seconds, if you are okay to complete your switchover, then do it. Or otherwise, I cannot tolerate more than 30 seconds as a downtime. I'm giving 30 seconds as example, but in my demo, right, I took more than that just to be on safer side. I just don't want to eat fail because it doesn't complete in 30 seconds, because that was something I was testing how much time it takes. So I given like a longer number there, like 10 minutes if I remember it right. But it took like around 15 to 20 seconds, right? So this is again configurable while you are doing switchover. So when you switch over, this is like after switchover complete successfully, right? So these are the resources and these are the naming convention you can see. First of all, your newly promoted production environment will have will be sitting in the behind your actual production endpoint. So for application, doesn't matter which environment you are having your resources to. Either it could be previous production or new production, but like you just use the same endpoint, and that is beauty of it. You just use same endpoint and you are pointed now to your newly promoted production environment. And like AWS will keep this blue environment as it is. If you have any reason for validation or anything, want to connect back to that, but it is highly recommended when you do not need it, you should go ahead and manually delete like old blue environment to save the cost. But by default, AWS do not do that. Okay, so when blue-green deployment complete successful, switchover complete successful, then you will see that your green field now became your blue field to say that like you have this primary DB replica, same naming convention, and what happens to green is it appends old to the name, right? So you can see database one, old one, DB replica one, old one. So you know like what blue environment, like which was earlier your production, what resources are pertaining to that, and you can go ahead and clean up that particular resources if you want. And this is a helpful naming convention, right? So one other point I want to mention is it's like I was just researching how actually this happens, right? How like AWS is able to figure out like which resource is what, and I figured like AWS keep that using DB resource ID. So if you go into this what is called like go into AWS management console and see it yourself, right? You can see that it has same resource ID across your switchovers. Like resource ID for this database does not change. And like if you're using for resource ID for any reason, right? Maybe for CloudTrail policies, or maybe I can think of for AWS backup. If you have a dependency on resource ID, I'm sure like we need to do the modifications in that particular services. And like when I was researching that, right, it was even mentioned in their documentation. But I was just doing research, and then I could see that happening. A resource ID will remain same. Okay, so yeah, so that's it. Like I'll just jump onto like demo, right? Just let me Let me stop sharing. I'm not able to find my file. Just give me a minute. Okay. Okay. So what I did, like, just give you an idea about how much time you I have seen like this deployment creation takes, right? Creation is slow, creation which is not impacting anything, right? Because this online activity, but I'm seeing like it is taking 30 to 35 minutes. So what I did, I just recorded that, and just I'll run through all the phases what we talked about, so that we do not wait, for sure we don't want to wait that long, right? But first is review. I'll just again reiterate: review, create, and switch over. That's what I explained. And here for demo purposes, what I'm doing is I'm simulating application connectivity using EC2 servers, and I'll show you the script I'm using, so that I was trying to see or time the outage. So I'm using EC2 server, and from there I'm using shell script to connect to RDS endpoint. And that's when when switchover happens, that script will be running, making sure it keeps on connecting to database. And when it fails, right, it gives us a prompt that I am not able to connect now, and that is the downtime starts, right? So this is a review. So first I'll show you what all topologies I was talking about. So you can see a primary and replica uh, as part of this. And if you go into configuration, just want to show you that it is a multi-AZ setup, right? So multi-AZ one with one replica, that is what I have tested with. But I'm sure if we scale it with multiple DB replica, it should work as well without any issues. Okay, so let me pause it here, right? So this is simple. When you are doing it from management console, you choose your primary database, go into actions, right? And then you will have, along with other options, now it is added, create blue-green deployment. You can see new, right? Because it's related to new feature, right? So this is how you will create deployment. And when you go into that form which asks for more details, I can even show you that. Okay, so before I create it, I just want to show you the script which I just mentioned, and this is just to simulate application connectivity. If you notice, this is database one, US is one, RDS. This is the endpoint I'm using, and this script will use that endpoint to connect, and there is no change needed. So this is application connecting, and we don't need to change anything on the configuration side of things or connectivity perspective. And what it does is it just keep on making connection to database, and it's insert timestamp in particular table, right? Track time. And when it's able to connect, it says, okay, I'm able to connect, and put that output. And when it is not, during our switch over, it just fails, saying that I'm not able to connect. Again, when database comes up fine, it's able to make a connection, and again, you can start seeing okay messages. So that is how I'm simulating application connectivity to time how much downtime we are looking at. Okay, so this is version what I'm having currently. It is 8028, right? And we are upgrading to 8032. So I just want to show you that this was the version when we started the activity, and it is 8028 of MySQL. So for blue-green deployment, again, you can see the current version. It says 828 is the current, and recommended is 32, which is the latest version available when I did this, right? So it takes one identifier, unique identifier, which is a blue-green deployment, and then you specify version, what version you want. You can go with the same version if your activity includes something else, not upgrade. But here I'm taking example of upgrade, but it can be anything. You can go with the current version if that is requirement. Okay, let me just go back. I have option only to go 30 seconds into it. Yeah. So once you create blue-green deployment after using that drop down, so it starts creating it, and you can see it takes, as I said, it takes something around 30 minutes or so, but you can see different statuses here, provisioning, creating, and all that, right? So this is database name is database one green, which I explained, which is our primary, and slowly it's get into read replica creation, right? So yeah, so after you have your deployment ready, so this is what topology you can see. This is your blue and this is your green field. And using blue-green deployment identifier, you can go ahead and actual perform switchover. Okay, so yeah, so you can like go into details, like just to read out like what are the endpoints which is being used, and all these things are like available in monitoring and configuration. You can just see that yourself. And the one section, let me see if I can show you that. Like it even talks about replications involved, replication endpoints involved. I want to show you that if I can. Right. Yeah. So this is like all the configuration, what is visible, and it makes sure that it has the exactly same configuration at least from instance type. Right. And if you want to like change the instance type, that should be done when you are creating a blueprint deployment. Yeah. So that should be it when creation. Okay, so here what I'm trying to show you this, like I'm connecting to, if you notice, I'm connecting to green deployment using that endpoint. I'm not using the actual production endpoint. I'm using green just to show you the version of it. So you can see your actual production will be 8028 and it is 832, which is our green. And we can use that green greenfield URL or endpoint to connect to your green database, staging database, and like do testing or whatever changes you want to do, you can still do in your greenfield, making sure that it's not breaking anything on your replication, which is happening behind the scene using binlog from MySQL, right? So that is only caveat. Otherwise, like you can connect and you can do whatever testing because it's already upgraded version for you. So that is on that. So yeah, so we just saw this. Yeah, so this was I was referring to. So this is a good place where you can see all the replication which is happening behind the scene, right? You can see database one, which is primary, which is not a source for any replication blue field, right? But like if you see green database, which is replicating, a source is your database one, and DB replica one, source is your database one again, right? This is actual blue-green, blue or your current primary replica. So it is sources this, and for green, source is your green database. So this is, and it says replicating. So this is two things, like you can understand your topology better when you're looking into in this replica section. And second is you can see that, okay, replication state is replicating. So there is no issues and there are no logs coming up here. So that is a good section to look at when you have your deployment ready. Okay, so yeah, so with that, right, we can start switch over, right? And this is like you can just like run through this what I just was showing and then click on switch over, and that's what like adding to simplicity what I mentioned earlier. Okay, I just don't want to miss this point. Yeah, so before this replica like switchover started, right, I want to make sure that I'm running that script which I just showed you. So what I did, I just started that script and then came here and started deployment or started switchover. So if you see, like it's saying like it's okay because like I'm able to connect to the database and there is no downtime involved, your endpoint is up and running, right? So, and suddenly when I start switchover, yeah, so suddenly like when I start switchover and in between, right, when switchover was in progress, what switchover does is it's like first put that both the databases is just cut off your write traffic. It will just put that in read only, and then it cut off your all the application. It just drop all your application connectivity. That is a second step in the guardrails, right? So when you are doing that, that's when it says like you are not able to connect to the endpoint, and that's when your downtime starts. So 002556 like actual downtime started, and if I can time it, and like when it says like your database is able to connect now, it is 2615. So around like 19 seconds, right? You can see like it's 19 to 20 seconds what I have seen. But obviously this is not something which is a heavily loaded database, right? It is a demo. So definitely like it is understandable that it is so less of a switch over time. But in real world, it can be more than that. But as per like AWS documentation with, for example, like with conditions apply for sure, because I see like AWS mentioned that as a condition apply, but definitely like they are expecting 1 minute, under 1 minute, so definitely that is, I don't expect it to take say 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, right? It's still good time. So yeah, so from timing out your outage, right? This is what I did, and as I mentioned, like it is around 19 seconds for me. Yeah, so like a few messages I have seen when it put database in read only. So like read only traffic still for a moment can work, but like I had an insert there, so definitely just error out saying that even you cannot go and do any activity on the database, or you cannot even do inserts, right? So I need just put that message, and it was in like screen when where I ran that particular script, and output I have already shown you. Yeah, so that's it on like this, like actual switch over. And then when you connect to your database using the same URL, you can see that your database version is now 8032. So now you are on your green field, and like your application should be up and running, and you are connected to your upgraded database, which is 8032. And with this, you will have your green like a new environment ready. But at the same time, as I mentioned, you have blue there. So make sure, like if you're using this feature, make sure you manually delete that old resources to reduce cost or stop getting charged for it. Yeah. So I think that should be it. I just want to show the naming convention at the last, like when, like I've shown you when I explained with the deck, but this is like when we did it, right? Like you can see that database one old was appended to your older resources, and this is a good place to just select that and just delete it in action. So when you do not need it, if you need it for some validation, just keep it for a few days and then definitely make a point to delete it. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. I just showed or just went and made sure like all the configurations are there. And this was the resource ID I mentioned, like this resource ID will be intact. If you note this resource ID before doing switchover and after doing switchover, this resource ID will remain the same for each of the resources, or particular respective resource ID will remain the same for each of the resources. And that's the way like it's happening. And if you have any dependency on the resource ID for config or CloudTrail or AWS backup, then yeah, it may start showing you issues, and there you know that it is due to the resource ID keeping same, and then blue your green resources has a different resource ID than your production. That is the only thing I observed. Otherwise, all the configurations are flowing into your staging environment. Yeah, with this, right, I'm done with my presentation or what I want to share with you guys today. And if you have any questions, right, we can talk about that, or any questions on the demo or what I explained, I'll be happy to answer if I could, right? Yeah. Yeah, Jeremy, back to you.
Great, thanks a lot, Girish. This was excellent. I mean, I was actually talking to a few people in the middle of this, wishing that this had been ready and we had built out a couple of products actually in this technique. I mean, it's life-changing the amount of stability you can have by having this kind of synchronization with the databases for managing your new deployments. So exciting new feature from AWS. Big thanks to them, obviously. But Girish, thank you for doing a really easy to understand, really helpful demo on this. So anybody joining us, thoughts on this? Anybody else ideas, questions, horror stories of what you've done in the past without something like this?
I have a question. And yeah, thanks. Add my thanks to Girish, to you for a great thorough demo here. And you may have covered this and I missed it, but in the time frame when you have a blue-green deployment out there and you have the green deployment, replication is happening from your primary production blue deployment to the green. Okay. What happens if you update data in that green deployment. If you during testing you need to do inserts, you need to do other things if replication is happening from the blue one.
Yeah, so for the honestly, I didn't test it, but like what I feel is right, like it might break replication and you start seeing messages where I was showing the section where it was showing replicating, right? I feel like it might break it because like being working on this particular model manually earlier, not using blue-green deployment feature, I know that replication will break if you are writing it to your staging environment because it's not too bidirectional replication, it's just unidirectional in that sense.
Right. And so there's no mechanism built in then to, I guess maybe you would have to create a new blue-green deployment in preparation for moving that to production potentially if you were to have broken that replication at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And like, yeah, if somebody has any other points and want to discuss that, right, please bring it up. And I just want to give my experience with working on the relational databases on-prem. Like I was working on Oracle, and we used to do similar thing manually using standby. We used to build standby, and then only thing is like there are some caveats. It's like easy, like you have here like already upgraded database, but what we used to do is like there will be upgrade involves migration of your data to different environment. We are using different server, different environment just to make sure that migration does not or we don't want to do in place in that case, but we are doing it in different server. So what we used to do is we just do standby creation, open that, like because there was no way to like have standby upgraded like later version than your primary. Now Oracle brought that, but earlier that was not the case. What we used to do is migration time we used to save, like if it is like terabytes of database, right? Migration itself takes time. So what we do is like do migrate, create a standby, and your downtime window will be shorter. Then you upgrade your database there, like maybe an hour or so, and then give it to application. So that way I used to do like the close to this, but it's not exactly it. But I'm feeling like this is a far better feature than what we used to do earlier.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions, Corey. Anybody else? Questions, thoughts, comments?
Hi, yes, thank you, Girish. This was fantastic. I was curious if you've heard any estimates of availability for the blue-green deployment with PostgreSQL RDS instance.
No, like I don't have any information, and I don't see anything mentioned on that. But yeah, but I can put this question like at least in like it's a good thing to know. I'll put this question in that community builder Slack. Many people from AWS are there, which might help us like answer that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. Thank you, Girish, for your presentation. I have a question regarding the case when, for example, you showed blue and green deployment in case you have some patch and so on. But what if during development someone made a lot of changes of tables and application which not yet deployed will connect to this database? What will happen, or how this deploy happen, how it performs? So it's as parallel deploys application, and in parallel switch to another database.
Yeah, if I understood right, like so what you're saying is if we make schema changes, that's what you're saying, right? If you make schema changes like on your green field or green database, will it break? So so what I have seen, right, like what when you're using log replication for MySQL, right? So schema changes like if it is not breaking or you are not adding data to your green field, right, it's still okay. That's what I have seen. Like there are constraints mentioned for going into detail of this in documentation, but like if it is not breaking bin log replication, ultimately it's just using MySQL bin log replication. So if it is not breaking it, to that extent, schema changes are possible, and there is a guidance on that. And yeah, that's it. Like, so like if you're adding data, like it says, like if it is breaking replication, it's not going to work. But if you're making schema changes for application functionality or adding new feature to application, still it should work. I haven't tested that piece for sure, but like it should work.